Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching this special presentation of Sansad TV ahead of the interim budget with your host Kriti Mishra. As Union Finance Minister prepares to present the interim budget, expectations are high that it will accelerate India's transition to a low-carbon, climate-resilient economy. India aims to meet its renewable energy targets and carbon emissions reduction goals in line with nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. India has set itself a target of achieving 500 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity by 2030 as part of its commitment under the Paris Accord. So how can the upcoming budget act as a catalyst in charting India's green energy course? Let's find out from our experts. Joining us on the show, Mr. Subrahmanyam Pulipaka, CEO, National Solar Energy Federation of India. And joining us through virtual platform, Mr. Manmohan Awasthi, Group President, SSEL. Welcome to Sansad Television, both of you, and thank you so much for joining us. And Mr. Pulipaka, let me begin the show with you. 22nd of January, 2024. Date immortalized, of course, for two very big reasons. Ram Mandir, and after returning from Ayodhya, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced the plan to install solar panels on 1 crore houses. What will this interim budget mean for Suryodaya Yojana?
In fact, you are aware, and like you mentioned, India is the world leader today when it comes to the rapid acceleration to energy transition we have witnessed. Our solar capacity grew leaps and bounds in the last 9 years. Today we are at 73 gigawatt, and if things go well, we'll cross 100 gigawatt in the next 12-13 months. But one thing that was always a point of concern was our distributed solar proliferation. And with that announcement on 22nd January, Prime Minister has made it very clear that India's priority is not just growth of solar but also spread of solar energy. 10 million households is an unprecedented target for a country. Of course, for a country like India, 10 million must be nothing. But if you look at rooftop, 10 million is huge. 10 million households, if we are able to achieve, that will be equal to the sum of the top 4 countries when we sum up their total installed roofs which have solar today. So I think there's definitely a hope, albeit this being an interim budget, there's a hope that there will be some provisions in terms of subsidies or in terms of special incentives for consumers who are at a lower consumption level, while also strengthening the program by introducing some more subsidies for citizens to make solar more lucrative for them to switch and have it on their rooftop. That is one of the major wish list or thing that the industry is looking forward. This is going to give a huge boost to India's rooftop sector in a way that has never been thought before. 10 million households on a conservative estimate would lead to at least 30 gigawatt. That is 30,000 megawatt. Imagine India, whose current installed capacity of 73 gigawatt, only 11 gigawatt comes from distributed and rooftop. And in 2 years, we are going to add only 30 gigawatt of rooftop. This is completely a very visionary and a very timely move. I must commend Honorable Prime Minister and the Ministry for coming out with this scheme. And Har Ghar Pe Solar is the motto now, which I think was well received by the common citizens.
Absolutely, Har Ghar Par Solar. But another important development, of course, that we saw was the PLI scheme for high efficiency solar PV modules. Do you expect it for other verticals as well?
Well, I think PLI for modules is one of the most successful PLIs. If things go well, by the end of this year, we'll see the PLI tranche 1 and tranche 2 modules coming out. There is, of course, wish list is always wish list. We do have hopes on seeing if we can expect a PLI on storage technologies. Of course, last time viability gap funding was announced.
Yes.
There was an announcement of PLI recently on grid scale storage. That is one aspect. And slightly moving away from generation, I think there are also hopes for PLI on e-mobility also.
That's true.
That's always on the top of the list, and I've just seen our e-vehicle market has grown more than 35%. That is a very positive sign, and that shows the commitment both the government and private sector have. So these both are a couple of things on the top of the priority. But I think both PLIs, PLI 1 and PLI 2 of solar high efficiency modules is something that has helped India establish itself as a global superpower in terms of manufacturing. And you'll not believe, by the end of next year, we're going to become the second largest hub of solar manufacturing. And in 2026, 2027, we will have more than 100 gigawatt of manufacturing end to end. Who would have thought Indian manufacturing would be scaling these heights, especially in technology that is continuously evolving?
Absolutely, we've leveraged our manufacturing capability like never before.
Definitely.
But you mentioned a very important word, which is e-mobility. Let's take that to our panelist. Mr. Awasthi, welcome to Sansad Television. There's overarching goal of the government to achieve 50% renewable energy in our energy mix by 2030. Do you anticipate a major green mobility push?
Thank you for having me in this panel. Yes, the target is humongous, and I think India as a whole, would be definitely achieving it. But there are a few points which we need to understand and keep in mind so that we can achieve these targets. Number one, the most important is that, as already explained by the panelists, the technology is always evolving. The manufacturing of the solar panel, which is not a very known technology outside China. The last technology which was updated outside China was around 15 years back, and post that, the entire European and US market also was depending upon China, and all the developments in terms of R&D, in terms of efficiency, was done in China. So if as a manufacturer of PLI 1 winner, and we have been working on this for last couple of years, and we have found that to get the right technology, which is as competitive or as efficient as the latest which China is producing, is becoming very difficult because of various reasons and known reasons that China is trying to put some kind of embargo on supply of equipments and technology to other countries, more specifically India. So that's one of the key bottlenecks. But yes, we can overcome that, and we are working on that. So that is number one. And number two, the most important thing is that we also need to have a macro level support from the government. PLI scheme is definitely supporting, but the scheme money would come only after you achieve COD and when you start selling the product. Whereas if you have to compete with China, in China, the kind of support the government gives is they give a plug and play kind of infrastructure wherein they have to just come and install the equipments and other infrastructure in place. They have a subsidy in power. They have subsidy in the rentals, or it's free of rent, free of interest. They have to just pay annual outgo is there in terms of a fixed outgo. So their fixed cost is minimal, and hence their cost of production is quite low. So we would also request the government of India to have some kind of infrastructure where a plug and play kind of environment is there, wherein all the infrastructure is provided and the companies come and just start the production. Third very important point is the funding of these projects. As you're aware, the funds required is huge. There is one estimate that we will require at least 10 trillions of rupees to have all these projects in place. Now, if you see in the international market, green bonds are very famous, and they have been utilized to the extent that almost every European country has given a sovereign bond. They have raised green bonds, and that is being used as a funding. Whereas in India, we are largely dependent on either a financial institution, which are like domestic FIs, and banks, where the cost of interest is high, and they have their own limitation in terms of tenor, in terms of interest rate, in terms of collaterals, what they take. So if we have to achieve this target, we have to provide some kind of a accessible funding method by promoting green bonds within India. So I'll stop there. If there is an additional question, definitely I can take it forward.
Absolutely. I'll quickly take your sense, Mr. Pulipaka, on green bonds.
I think what Manmohan ji mentioned, it is time for India to capitalize on green bonds. If you look at our target of 2030, we require only for generation, meeting the target, we require $300 billion. And we did, of course, release a sovereign green bond framework in 2022. But one of the key challenges in that framework, and which is also a potential which can be addressed, is that we need to redefine the taxonomy. We need to start adding more clear, specific definition points into the green taxonomy that can help us accelerate energy transition by the means of getting affordable capital. For example, adding all agriculture applications, adding all storage applications, not just battery storage, pump storage, any other technology, alternate cell chemistry, even adding manufacturing, renewable manufacturing. That will sort of accelerate the way funds flow into the system. And we have seen in the last year, I was observing the market, India is less than 2% of the global green bonds market, but we installed 20% of the global capacity.
Yeah, that's right.
So we need to fill that gap. And I have full confidence that if we are able to tweak it and sort of come out with a very holistic taxonomy and a framework, I think we will be an example which the world will look at on how we can leverage this slight tweaking in the green taxonomy and then use this affordable capital to propel our own energy transition.
Well, absolutely. And from green bonds, let's focus on National Green Hydrogen Mission.
Yes.
So the objective, of course, is to achieve the production capacity of 5 MMT per annum of green hydrogen.
Yes.
Investment of over 8 lakh crore rupees.
Yes.
There's potential of creating 6 lakh jobs.
Yes.
Do you think or do you anticipate any specific step in the interim budget for realizing this goal?
See, I mean, last 2 budgets have been very hydrogen heavy, and we are seeing the results today. Like you mentioned, we had allocation to 2 PLIs. Both were out. The bids were announced, the winners were announced a couple of weeks back.
Yes.
So we have 1 PLI for green hydrogen generation and 1 for electrolyzer manufacturing. So we will definitely see them up and running in a span of next 2 to 3 years. On the other hand, I think maybe it might be wishful thinking, but I think there might be, if at all, some incentives for demand-oriented industries to mandate green hydrogen consumption. Today, the world is at a global green hydrogen war.
That's true.
The next Kurukshetra is happening on green hydrogen. So India has taken the lead, and we are by far much ahead of other countries in terms of developing domestic capabilities. While we have stable demand inside the country and outside the country, it would be more prudent to look at promoting our own industries to consume our own green hydrogen also.
But it will be crucial to see, sir, how hard to abate sectors actually go ahead.
Well, hard to abate sectors are also highly potential sectors. So we can look at it from that side also.
That's right.
And today I think one thing which is very clear when we look at the entire energy transition story in the country is we are maybe one of the few countries or the only country where we have accepted, acknowledged and are in full agreement that transition is inevitable.
That's right.
And we have to do everything and anything to get towards it. For example, just in the span of last 10 minutes, we spoke of 3 things, and all 3 things ultimately integrate and allude to our government strategy. We spoke about generation, which is electricity. We spoke about mobility, and we are speaking now about industry.
Right.
So to have a scheme which is encompassing the entire overarching spectrum of decarbonization is something that not many countries have all the stakeholders speak in unison.
Absolutely.
So I think this is very, very crucial. Most sectors are trying to look into this particular thing also.
Absolutely. And from green hydrogen, let's shift focus to biofuels. Mr. Awasthi, the Global Biofuel Alliance is an initiative by India as the G20 chair. The alliance intends to expedite the global uptake of biofuels through facilitating technology advancements and intensifying utilization of sustainable biofuels. In fact, the E20 fuel currently sold, that's over 1,900 pumps in the country. The plan is to make it available throughout the country by next year. Do you expect a major announcement for promoting biofuel in India's energy mix?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, there has been great emphasis on biomass and cogeneration. In fact, the India's policy on shift towards ethanol blending in petrol, that is also a step towards that. And if you go by the figures, biomass and cogeneration as on date is approximately 10.2 gigawatt in the country. And there is a huge scope, and it can be easily doubled in next, I think, to my estimate, in next 2 to 3 years, this can be doubled. The only the focus, the way it has to be, that there has to be the emphasis on how we bring in the capacities what we have in pipeline and new capacities by probably having some kind of a PLI scheme or some incentives to promote such production. If you go by the previous focus on, like, the government has given exemptions on the custom duties on the battery energy storage system and other incentives which they're giving. If those incentives are also given to such biomass production and cogenerations, and then definitely there is huge scope. There is also a very urgent need to develop a proper technology, because this sector has been evolving. And I have personally seen many biomass generation program which has been successful recently. But if you go 5 years back, there were issues, and a few projects have not been viable and have been not performing as per the efficiency levels and production requirement of the generation of the power. But now there has been quite enough technology, and the R&D has to keep on improving the technology, and there has to be a fund, or at least from the government side there should be a initiative to have some kind of a ministry for this, which will initiate some kind of R&D which will help these farmers, because these are mostly these plants will be mostly in the villages or near the town where these biofuels are available. So a kind of a chopal or something has to be established, which will help them to have a smaller plant which will be used in their own villages, and it will be more efficient in terms of utilization and generation also.
Well, absolutely. And as you're talking about technology, Mr. Pulipaka, I'm reminded of the need for smart grids, the energy storage capacity for seamless integration of renewable into the grid. How do we achieve that?
I think the foundation for that is already laid. You must be aware now smart meters are being mandated, and the progress is very good. And rooftop installations in one way or the other are a next step closer to smart grid. Imagine a situation where we have a rooftop solar, and then there's a storage, and then it's connected to the grid, and it's grid interactive. I mean, that will be a completely highly advanced version of a modern grid. I think that is one thing that the government is already doing. On the second side, I think India's grid today is the world's largest grid, all said and done. And one thing the government has done right on point is to create a dedicated evacuation infrastructure. Already 9,000 circuit square kilometers have already been done. Another 10,000 are in different stages of implementation. Put together, they will host 50-60 gigawatt of green energy. And now the government is pushing distributed renewable energy to a large extent. So I think we will be having one of the most de-risked, centrally decentralized grid, where we have all the risks addressed in terms of grid administration. I'm also aware that now a lot of sensitization has also been enforced in the threats related to cyber security in our power systems, and very happy to see that our grids are not just strong and able to accommodate renewables, but they are also resilient in wake of any untoward incident directed at our grids. So that is something that's a very huge positive step for us to transition to a completely smart grid.
Well, absolutely. And of course, all eyes on the interim budget 2024. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will present it. And before we wrap up the show, time for closing comments from our panelists. Mr. Awasthi, interim budget 2024 and India's green energy transition. Your closing thoughts.
As rightly mentioned by our panel guest, that there has to be focus on green hydrogen mission. We have to also expand our renewable energy capacity, whether it is solar or wind or this hydrogen. Then there has to be definitely more shift towards the ethanol blending, which can be increased up to say 20%. That is where we will be also reducing our imports of traditional fuels. Then focus on, of course, definitely we have to focus on the battery energy storage system, where the exemptions like custom duties should be extended and probably increased. Smaller schemes like Kusum, Govardhan scheme, then definitely now this Suryodaya scheme where rooftop are being implemented. These are very, very good schemes which will bring in a lot of Indians into this ambit. Largely the smaller farmers and all will be part of this effort to reach toward our net zero emission target. Also, there is one need to integrating the environmental sustainability into the very core of the decision-making process. Like if the green budgeting, each government department, if they can have their budget wherein they emphasize or lay out what steps they have done to achieve this green budgeting, that would reduce the burden of the one standalone budget which we have annual into different departments, and they will also be able to focus individually on all these schemes. And there is on the implementation side, I feel, as I mentioned earlier, funding is one of the major areas where government has to provide some support, because today the cost of funding in India is the highest. If I have to compete with China or any other European and US country, of course, US we do have advantage in terms of labor and other costs, but in terms of finance cost, we are the highest. So there has to be some kind of a support, insurance support, or scheme wherein the companies which are setting up such plants will get some kind of a good rating, and then they can go for a bond. So we have to develop the bond market. Incentives should be given to financial institutions, banks, and other investors to invest in such bonds, so that they get some tax incentives. So overall, the cost of funding would come down. Also, in terms of data,
right, sir,
the data analysis and all, what we have, we should have a cloud technology where MIS is appropriately there. And I would say these things, if we taken care, then definitely we will be achieving what we would like to achieve by 2030.
Well, absolutely, sir. Point well taken. Mr. Pulipaka, I'll give you the last word on the show.
I think not covering Manmohanji's points, three things that are key interest points from our sector would be that to see how the government looks at the e-mobility and also storage, allied to mobility as well as storage for energy generation. The second would be how green hydrogen will find its place in the budget in terms of incentives or in terms of providing more SOPs for consuming green hydrogen. Last but not the least, of course, the hope is at its all-time high for Suryodaya Yojana.
That's right.
And I think and I hope after the budget, everyone will say, "Ghar ke upar solar is super."
Sabke ghar ke upar solar. On that positive note, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Pulipaka and Mr. Awasthi. Well, a transition to clean energy is also a huge economic opportunity for India. On that note, thank you so much for watching Sansad Television. Take care. Good night.